Good.
So we've got 20 minutes, and I don't know if anyone's keeping the time, but we'll just kind of roll in and we'll see what happens. But Andy, Andy, you're the MC, so do you want to get started?
So I'm going to try and keep it to 10 minutes of questions just to get a wee bit of a background on Tom and everything. And then we can go to questions, and if everybody's too shy, I have more questions here anyway. So I think we'll try and keep it pretty informal. It's a small group of people. Tom, straight away, introduce yourself.
Hi, so it's great to be here. Thanks for making time to show up at the session today. I'm Tom Yoritaka. I run Cisco's corporate venturing group globally. I'm personally based in London. My job and my passion has been for the last 4 years around, on behalf of Cisco, working closely with early stage companies at the behest of our Cisco business units. So working closely on the inside with engineers, product teams, and their executives to engage early stage companies. And these are typically companies between seed and Series B. I started this group back in the Valley in California 4 years ago. About a year and a half ago, after quite a bit of success there, we decided to expand the group to London. That's when I personally relocated to Europe to launch the same group and the same approach to startups in London. Our approach is a little bit different from the traditional investments approach. We engage first and we invest later. So the first point of entry for startups vis-a-vis my group is always, is there a strategic fit with Cisco and Cisco's business units? And that's the first entry point. Now, we spend the first 6 to 12 months building relationships with these companies and with Cisco's business units. Each company gets a sponsor in a Cisco, someone very senior at Cisco, typically a VP and SVP running that business unit. And through that sponsorship, we accelerate the strategic business outcome. Only after that, we consider acquisitions, investments, and other sort of levels of partnership. So it's a two-step approach, engagement first and investments later. We brought in, between London and San Francisco, we brought in 33 companies so far. We've exited successfully through Cisco and Cisco's partners, 7 out of 33. We've acquired 2 companies ourselves. There's one that went to Intel, there's another one that went to SAP. So financially speaking, quite successful. We've seen over 60 strategic engagements, and all of those combined led to an opportunity pipeline of over $150 million. So both on the financial side and on the strategic side, we've seen a lot of success. We focus on, because I do what I do on behalf of Cisco, all B2B software categories. So the companies I like are in IoT, AI, cyber, blockchain, and a host of other sort of B2B software categories. Personally speaking, this is, I'm just thrilled to be in Istanbul. This is my 24th country to visit. I keep track of all the countries and cities I've visited. So this is number 24, my first time. It's incredible to be here, and would love to have a conversation today and get your questions as well.
Perfect, thanks, Tom. So going straight into more questions, we see all this corporate engagement around startups. Is this just an experiment? Why do corporates even want to engage with startups? Surely they're clever enough to do it themselves.
Well, I think there's, in my experience, personal experience, and apart from my day job at Cisco, I work with startups in my personal capacity and invest in them as well. There's a tremendous need on the part of many companies like Cisco to partner with early stage companies because there are a lot of adjacencies and disruptions that simply big companies like Cisco can't really keep up with. And smaller companies are just much better positioned to develop those technologies and take them to market. So our approach always has been, it's a combination of internal, obviously, R&D and development and engineering, and strategic partnerships and investments with smaller companies, especially around these adjacencies and long-term disruptions that we see.
So you were saying there about successful engagements. If you could choose, because we're in a room with investors, knowing how to pick the right corporate program to engage with? Because there's
Yeah.
many. What are you seeing that's successful? And that's not just thinking about Cisco, but what's also unsuccessful? Because there's a lot of noise around this space.
Yeah. So I think, like, I consider our group and our program quite, we've had a lot of success. And the key ingredient, in my view, to having a successful innovation program, or accelerator program, is really investing in the relationships on the inside with the owners of businesses within, say, Cisco, Microsoft, or SAP. Now, if you don't have that connection, no matter what you do on the outside, you can host events, you can, do PR, you can do marketing, but ultimately you won't end up with business outcomes. So, if you're thinking about sending your investees to an accelerator or to an innovation program, the first thing you want to look at is this going to lead to a business outcome with company X or groups of companies? And how is that going to be realized? Is there strong enough strategic partnership with Cisco, Microsoft, SAP, and so on and so forth? If not, it's often, you have so many accelerators, and a lot of them end up just graduating companies without, meaningful sort of corporate relationships and business outcomes. So that's what I see being a key to success, and that's what you should be looking for as investors and when you think about your portfolio companies.
Now the tricky question, what's unsuccessful look like?
Well, so I think that it's the flip side of that. So I think you have, like I said, you have accelerators and innovation programs, incubators that basically, in my personal view, that do a lot of, again, PR, marketing, events, all of, there's value in all of them, but that really don't invest in corporate relationships. And again, that really, they don't have a systematic approach to driving business outcomes. So that's, if you don't have that, I think my view is that you do have a lot of options, but you don't get a lot of business value out of those experiences. So that's number one. And number two, I think those that tend to be successful have a definitive focus. So I think the days of generic accelerators, at least in the markets I personally know, in the US and in countries like the UK, those days are gone. There are too many accelerators that do generic acceleration and events and so on and so forth. So if you're picking one, look at your portfolio companies and make sure that you pick a program that has a thematic and sector focus around that. So cyber, if your portfolio is centered around cybersecurity, there are accelerators that do just cyber acceleration. So those are the ones you want to look at. Blockchain, for example, and that's another theme. You don't send your blockchain companies to a generic accelerator. Make sure that the people that are going to look after your companies, they know the technology and they have the right corporate relationships.
So I was going to ask the question about the next 5 years. I'm not going to bother. One of the things is that this is an angel conference.
Yeah.
So full of early stage investors, maybe seed, Series A, B type investors. You just said that this is your 24th country.
Yeah.
You're probably going to be on your 25th next year, or next week. So, how can people get involved? Surely it's too hard for an angel to have a relationship with a Cisco or a Microsoft.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. In person, my group has worked with both VCs and early stage investors, including angels, and we've had successful relationships. So I wouldn't automatically assume, the Cisco's and Microsoft of the world, they wouldn't be interested in partnering with you. I think what you want, if I were one of you, I would, for my investees, think about not just finding the next round of investors to take them to Series A and for you to potentially cash out, but I would also think about finding the right corporate partners. I would consider that part of my remit, part of my responsibility as you take them to Series A investors, also take them to corporates. Personally, I've had a lot of productive relationships with angels.
Fantastic. So before we open up the questions to the floor, what technology areas are you seeing is going to be the next disruptor? As a personal investor, corporate venture guru, where are you putting your dollars?
Well, I think where I'm looking.
And I don't mean Cisco. I mean, where do you think?
Well, yeah. So in my Cisco capacity and in my personal advisor and investor capacity, I see sort of emerging opportunities or newer opportunities at the intersections of many of the traditional themes. So take AI. I think the days of finding amazing companies and amazing deals in generic AI or horizontal AI, those are gone. I think the good ones have been taken. The next phase, I believe, is where AI and, let's say, take cybersecurity. Those two, imagine a Venn diagram. Those two intersect. So what does AI actually generate from a business outcome perspective? So that's just one example, and I see some interesting companies sort of, again, in that sort of middle of the Venn diagram emerging, AI and cybersecurity. AI and of course, transportation, and connected cars. That's another example, right? So again, traditionally two separate themes at least, but those are, again, coming together. IoT and security. Like you're going to have soon tens of billions of connected devices, not just your smartphones and traditional sort of IP cameras, but all of the devices on your manufacturing floors, in public buildings, and so on and so forth. Now, security around those connected devices is going to be a tremendous opportunity. Again, that's a cross-section of those two themes coming together. So I would look at those types of Venn diagrams and really find interesting companies in the middle.
Perfect. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to open up the floor. Does anybody want to ask any questions? Specifically around corporate venturing, personal venturing. How do you get a hold of big companies? How do you work with pitfalls?
Okay, go on. Okay.
Please, if you want.
No, I was going to say, Andy, just so for context, Andy is a co-founder of Whitespace Ventures, and Whitespace Ventures has been tremendous in helping us launch and scale in London. And I've had a very productive relationship with Andy's company because we share the same philosophy. What Whitespace does is it's really on the side of startups and founders. It's business development and scaling first, and investment later. So, and that's a philosophy that we subscribe to as well. It's not, we don't show up at a company and go, can I invest in you? It's first about, can I help build your business? And then if you need money, we can help you with that as well. So Whitespace has been tremendous in, they've been very successful in their own right in the UK, but a terrific partner for Cisco in London and beyond. So with that,
okay.
A question, yes.
Thanks very much, Tom. That was really good. As private investors, I think there's a lot of attraction in terms of working with you guys at large corporates whose ecosystem can help us as well. So what would be the best way of going about partnering with you in finding mutually acceptable investments, or maybe not finding, but getting in the deal? So I think if you have an investee that you think is a good fit for Cisco, in Cisco's case, you can come talk to me. I happen to be, Cisco happens to have a group like mine that talks to angels, that focuses on early stage companies. If you're going to other companies, not every company has this structure. My best advice is goes to a business owner. Don't waste your time. I shouldn't waste it, but don't spend too much time poking around in R&D or in marketing or in sales. Go straight to a business owner that has resources, that has the ability to make decisions to partner with you or your investee and potentially co-invest, right? And that's easy to say, hard to do, but I think really building that executive relationship within the business is key.
Thank you. Could you please sort of elaborate a little bit on the phase where you work with companies before you invest? So what do you do as Cisco to help them develop?
Yeah, it's so the first relationship building phase. It's first, we pick the right companies, and it's a long due diligence process. I typically see close to 1,000, including everyone, 1,000 companies a year, and we go from there to no more than 20 companies that we actually bring into the group. So it's a funnel.
So we do a lot of due diligence. Once the companies come in, it's a lot of program management and a lot of time spent with key engineers, key product teams under the sponsorship of the executive to identify joint opportunities. And these could be, as I said, joint sales opportunities on the business side. On the engineering side, we typically look at ways to partner to co-develop or to integrate the two companies' technologies. So, and it's just a lot of hand-holding, program managing, to accelerate that. What may take a year or 2 years, we try to compress all of that into 6 months to 12 months. So,
So there's a commitment to invest at the beginning, or
No.
sort of you see as you go along.
yeah, so it's the latter. The initial commitment is to build a successful partnership. That's the commitment. Based on that, based on the traction, based on the level of strategic fit, we selectively consider acquisitions or investments. Okay, I think we had a question here.
Yeah. You've been banned. See?
How do you guys handle IP rights and technology if you're working with companies that are very, very young?
Yeah, so logistically, so from a structure point of view, my group doesn't impose a template, so to speak. Everything that happens from an IP sharing or ownership perspective is left up to the startup that comes in and the business unit sponsor. So as they engage in joint sales calls or joint projects, they individually, and per assignment, per project, they define, what that ownership sharing needs to look like. So it's really case by case.
And then what are some of the biggest pitfalls that you've seen in terms of dealing with really early stage companies?
Yeah, so it's what's been the flip side of the question is what's made us successful, and I typically sort of use, because it's easy to remember, 3 letters ABC. A is for agility, and it's really the need for big companies like Cisco to be agile, to be fast, and that's usually one of the biggest hurdles for when it comes to corporate startup partnership. Startups need to move fast. Corporates, for a variety of reasons, can't move fast. And a big part of my job is to make sure that that's not the case. That our business unit sponsors and engineers, they try to move as fast as the startup. So that's A for agility. B is for business model, and this is around being conscious of the need to give the right business model to the startup, because often it's there's a fear on their part that they get taken advantage of once they come into big companies like Cisco. And there's a temptation, of course, on our side to do that. So my job often is to make sure that I act as a good faith, neutral partnership broker, and to make sure that it's a win-win. There's a business model for both parties, for each of the partners in the equation. So that's B. And then C is continuity. And this is around making sure that as people come and go within a large company like Cisco, within large companies like Cisco, executives change, teams, get reorganized. There is a continuity in the relationship between the startup and Cisco, no matter who's in charge. It's not dependent on one person running the business. So it's ABC, agility, business model, and continuity. Those are the things to keep in mind to make it successful.
Can I add to that, Tom?
Yeah.
So I've had a sort of a varied background. I spent 20 years building companies. I've exited many and IPO'd companies. I also founded Microsoft Ventures, and now I'm sort of jumped into the investor world. I'm quite happy in any of those shoes. And Cisco is just one of partners that I work with. So I work with Microsofts, the Googles, the Avivas, every corporate at the minute that can bring value to a startup. And the number one I see is that a startup comes in riding a white horse, and straight away they've lost. They come in and they go, we've got the best, communication technology, better than what you have. So two things. All that's happened is you've just pissed off the person that spent billions on a technology that they have to implement into the business no matter what. So you actually, it's far better to come in with an understanding of you're going to work to solve the problem together. Now, during that time, if they realize that your technology is better, then it's a great outcome. The only other outcome is then that you have to go out and get a lot more users than that big company, so they come and acquire you anyway because they've realized actually. So the white horse model is the worst. It really is. Yeah, coming into $1 billion, $100 billion company saying you're going to solve their problems. It's the worst thing you could possibly do.
Excuse my ignorance, but historically until today,
Yeah.
when I think of Cisco and I think of our space, I think of your entrepreneur in residence model.
Mm-hmm.
How does this work with that? Is it a replacement? Is it complementary? Or are they just two separate worlds within Cisco?
Complementary to, I didn't get the first part.
Complementary to Cisco itself.
No, Cisco has a concept of entrepreneurs in residence,
Right.
which is how historically I was aware of Cisco's play with startups
Okay.
and in this space.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing now
Yeah.
is venture, which
Yeah.
is slightly different. So this is strategic venture based on pre-entry due diligence.
That's right. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
that's what I just heard.
Yeah.
So is this a change in strategy, or is it complementary to your historical model?
I see. So the program that I run is actually called Cisco Entrepreneurs in Residence, Cisco EIR. But it's actually not an EIR program, as you might know. It is actually corporate venturing, and it is based on all of the things that we discussed today. Pre-due diligence, strategic partnerships, business unit sponsorship, and acquisitions, investments later, right? So it's a bit of a misnomer. It's a brand we started with 4 years ago, and it's
Corporates don't know how to brand this. This is new world for them.
so it's stuck. So Cisco EIR is corporate venturing for Cisco.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the most important thing is with corporates, they're all exactly shaped the same. Really, mostly they have a venturing arm that comes in and acquires companies or invests in. Secondly, they have an accelerator lab, skunkworks, EIR, whatever you want to call it, which is effectively, like, there's a company out there that we know that's
Oh
doing
yeah, they've
something
got Swahili Pot in Kenya.
Yeah.
Swahili Pot in Kenya is one of yours.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, but then again, you've then even earlier stage again. So I noticed in your card you had Microsoft BizSpark. Cisco's got the IDEA program in London,
Right.
and that's for even earlier stage. So most corporates always broke into three, but if they're all talking to each other, it's pretty successful. So it's always knowing where to point. If you're going straight into corporate venturing, then you need to be ready for that. But most of corporates is in this middle bracket, which is we can work together to solve a large problem. And like one of the things I was saying earlier, like the reason I have a relationship with Cisco is not because me and Tom like to hang out, which we do, but is that I want his 90,000 vendors worldwide, and I want his VPs of engineering to do due diligence on any company that I'm bringing up that says they're disruptive in Internet of Things. To have that reference point is actually another good thing for angels to be able to bounce companies off.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think like you can, from your perspective, you can use programs and groups like mine for scaling opportunities. If you already have an investee that needs to go to the next level, come to Cisco, come to Microsoft, come to SAP. But you can also use us as a source of technical due diligence. I mean, if you're not sure about a company, send the company to us anyway, so that we can apply our engineering skills and executive due diligence.
The next logical question is, when are you coming to Africa?
Well, Africa's on my personal list. It's not, none of the 24 countries I've seen so far is in Africa. So where in Africa? I mean, Africa is obviously a huge continent, but where should I start?
Where should you start? Okay, let me be selfish and say Nigeria.
Okay.
But the logical place you probably want to start is South Africa.
I see. Okay. Yeah. And we have a pretty strong partnership as a company with Dimension Data, which is based there. So
I would imagine that that's a logical place. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So I don't know, but I would like to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Keep
but if
me
you
on-
do
keep
want
me honest
reference,
on
by
that.
the way, my wife's from Malawi. So I have to be involved in Africa. My kids went to school there. So there is Microsoft for Africa. There is large programs.
Oh, I work with.
There you go.
Yeah, Badalika and the For
There you-
Africa group. Yeah,
There,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So there is
British Council
there-
and that lot. Yeah.
There's lots of organizations that, specifically ISPs, telecommunication companies, Facebook, those type of ones are really interested in emerging markets.
Intel Capital's pulled out. That's why we're looking for.
Don't worry
All
about that.
right. Okay. Okay. Are you guys all angel investors, by the way? All okay. So, but you obviously are visiting from different countries, Africa. I'm guessing local, yeah, as well. Okay. What's the biggest challenge for, let's say, investors in Turkey? What's the biggest source of frustration today?
You have to narrow the question more.
Okay. Well,
If you just ask this question,
so
you can talk maybe 3 hours.
there are 100 of them. Like what?
You should narrow the question.
Well, a good example in the UK, it's really easy to raise angel investment because of SAS and all these schemes, but yet there's 15,000 startups and only 3% have ever hit a Series A, which is rubbish. You know, so there's a maturity lack of later stage investors in the UK that can really take companies from seed to Series A, B, and C and beyond. So I suppose the question, go back into Turkey, is, you know, is it a deal flow? Is there plenty of companies? Is there enough investing? Is it not going to hit Series A? Corporates aren't interested.
Well, I believe at the moment, such a problem of investment at later stages, because there are some VCs that has to spend their money, invest their money in 2017, or else the money is gone.
Lose the money, yeah.
So there's enough money in Series A, Series B. I guess the deal flow is a problem. And also, of course, the country, the politics, the economy, it's not stable. A lot of investors have concerns about investing into the Turkish local ecosystem, to tell the truth. And years before, the real estate was very much, if you were to invest your money into real estate, you would just make like at least 20% return on investment per year. So we were having difficulties in convincing people to invest into the startups. I'm personally investing myself, but I mean, these are the problems to develop the ecosystem, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, not all of them, but you want to add something?
Well, actually, we have the same problem as in the UK because there are many startups, but we have very little scale-ups. So when you invest your money and you have to take a return from there, so because you will exit, and if you can't do it, then you can't invest once more. And we need success stories in Turkey. That's the most important thing, I guess, at the moment.
Maybe one more addition. We were a little bit criticizing maybe, but because we are not only investors, we are also working a lot to improve the ecosystem. I'm an angel investor myself, but I am attending this conference as the founder of Mentors Network Turkey, which is an initiative to support the ecosystem. We are a group of mentors who have past experience of entrepreneurship or professional experiences. We are a group of people, over 80 people, so we work a lot to improve the ecosystem. One of the problems also is corporates are not so active. We have a very big industry companies. We have a lot of big companies in Turkey, local or international.
Yeah.
They are not so active in the ecosystem, or if they are active, they just do some PR, some marketing with what they do, but there are no real results. No one is looking into outcomes. Just sometimes just it's like a PR effect. So it was very important what you were telling. They're not really after real outcomes. I mean, or Sometimes the cases, they have some reports from those big consultancy companies like Deloitte, Accenture, McKinsey. They say you have to do innovation. The last paragraph ends with that. So all of them are in a panic. They just, run into the ecosystem, forgive me, but spend all their money into stupid things. And then at the end, we are again left with going nowhere. But we are at the very early stages, so these will improve, we hope. But we need more outcome-based, KPI-based, more collaboration.
Yeah.
So these kind of models.
And is there, in your mind, is there a particular strength that if you look at Turkey as a tech ecosystem, that you can really concentrate efforts on? Is it cyber? Is it AI? Is it manufacturing or IoT for manufacturing? Is it aerospace? I've seen a lot of ecosystems, including the UK, and one of the most common mistakes that the cities, countries, and ecosystems make, they try to copy and paste Silicon Valley, and it's not going to work. I mean, Silicon Valley, if you look at the amount of dollars exited, Silicon Valley is almost 50% of the world. It's bigger than the next 9 ecosystems combined. And so if a company has a choice looking at between Silicon Valley and a generic, Me Too Silicon Valley, everyone would come to California, and they do. So, as you activate your ecosystem, you have to have a purpose and a thematic focus. Why do companies stay in Turkey? Why do companies come to Turkey to build businesses? In the UK, I'm thrilled to be based in London because there's strengths that Silicon Valley potentially can't match. There are a lot of exciting things happening in AI, cyber, fintech, of course, right? So there's a reason for companies to be based in London. And you have to find that reason for Turkey, for Istanbul.
Yeah, you're very totally. I agree with that. I think as an ecosystem we couldn't find that strength yet, but not from the technological point of view, I can say. But if you look into the Turkey as a market, we have a very young population, so we have a great talent base, and we have really good, education and also a lot of talent. I'm not talking from the technology point of view or in verticals, but anything targeting this young population has a great chance of growing because we have very good, the initial first, buyers, first comers are a lot in this, age group. Like for example, Foursquare, 1/4 of all check-ins worldwide is from Turkey. We are a social media, country, and 1/4. I mean, 25% of all check-ins are from Turkey. So when you look at some, startups that have big traction at the moment, like 8 million, 10 million users, I know it's not high tech, but it's in social media. There's a Turkish startup who has almost 1 million users in Mexico. It's a social platform. So, I mean, it's opportunity for Turkish startups to grow here with this local market and go global. But they mustn't be so late in going global, of course.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think with time,
we're
we're for time, yeah, because people are coming in and out of the door.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, somebody came in with a sign said, "Tom, get out of the room." So.
It's too short, as I expected. But thanks for having a conversation with us. And you know how to reach us, I suppose. So, I'm open for further conversations. Send me an email, text me or whatever. And we'd love to get to know you. So thanks again. And thanks, Andy.
No problem. Thank you.